Welcome to the Gritty Podcast, folks. I am your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thank you.
Today's podcast episode is with our friend Thor.
Thor Tingey.
But not like the Thor in the Avengers.
No,
not like in the Thor in Norse mythology.
No, he's a different Thor.
It's some kind of like Egyptian translator or something name, or I can't remember now.
His dad went to school to learn
Middle Eastern languages or something.
Yeah, like in the 60s.
Which makes you wonder. It's like, come on, Thor. I think it's like Indiana Jones-ish, though, to me, in a way.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, we have him on the podcast. Thor's a stud. He's an awesome guy. We talk about his mom. We talk about how they started Alpacka Rafts. So for those who don't know, he is the owner of Alpacka Rafts, which is a very, very lightweight backpacking raft that Ryan and I used on our last mule deer hunt. And we showed it in the film series, which, by the way, have killed it out there. So if you're one of those podcast listeners that haven't gone to our YouTube channel because you only listen, you should take the time to go watch the films because they've done so well. And we're just, thousands. I think we have, between the three films, we have 6,000 comments on YouTube videos.
I might be a little biased, but I think they're pretty great.
Yeah, they're cool adventures. So if you're not actually watching that because you're mostly kind of just a listener, go check it out. It's worth your time. People loved it. We share a lot about the gear that we're using, so it's informational. We share a lot about where we're at in terms of country and our strategy and information about the species we're hunting. And I really try to make the productions educational, so you're not just coming along on a hunt, but you're learning like how we did it and why we did it, and even the mistakes we make. Like Ryan used the raft backwards the entire trip. Technically, we all used it backwards, but we did it because Ryan led the way. No, we had
the
never
man
used
with all the experience.
Yeah, right. Ryan's rafted and been on the water far more than us. I've been on my share, but I'm not really a finesse person on the water. Like I take a paddle and I attack the water and I muscle the boat around.
You get where you're going.
Ryan is more like, he's like this dainty paddler with efficiency and
reads the water.
Yeah, whatever, dude. Just get across. You could see the evident difference between us when you watch the bear series that we did, where we crossed the river in a different raft. And
he did it in about half the strokes.
Yeah, right. But who cares? It's not a contest.
It is.
If it is, though, eventually I'll get better than Ryan. That's the goal. No, we had a blast on that hunt, and the Alpacka Raft was phenomenal. We expected it to sort of drag, I don't know, just be like a rubber raft, but it's not. It actually works a lot like a kayak. Cuts the water really well. Once I got my hands on it and I saw it only weighed 7 pounds, but could carry 500 or 600 pounds. The other one's 8 pounds, can carry 600 pounds, I think. You're blown away. And so I was very curious about the build because I thought, well, if it's this light, like how durable is this? Mm-hmm. And could I float 100 miles through the bush in Alaska?
Right, you sound like someone who's like dissing on your tent. Well, if it only weighs 1.5 pounds, how good could it be?
Well, that's the thing. You think, you wonder. And so we have Thor on here and he breaks it down for us and he tells us a lot about the raft. I think that this is such a valuable tool in a hunter's toolkit that although it's not a cheap piece of gear, an inexpensive piece of gear, it's worth the investment because of all the opportunities it opens up for you. Think about it. If you're hunting a canyon that has floatable water, you could go up that and carry your 7-pound raft 9-10 miles up. Mm-hmm. You kill an animal like an elk where you've got about 200 pounds of meat to float out or more. You can load that into a raft and float it rather than backpack it out 10, 12 miles.
And when you say load it into the raft, you're literally putting it into the baffles of the raft.
That's one thing that's really cool is it has pontoons built into the raft. It has an area where you can load your gear into the baffles, into the actual rubber raft itself, seal it, and then pump it up, and the air goes around it. It's pretty slick. But I'll quit talking about it. I'll let you listen to Thor talk about it. But for those that are interested in the raft, you got to check it out. In the meantime, I wanted to read some of the comments that people left on the moose film. So for those who've been following Gritty and those that haven't, I guess, we did a moose hunt in British Columbia in the Cassiar Mountains in October 2018. And we made a little movie out of it, and we just released it just now on our YouTube channel. So it's pretty cool. I think released it. It's been 24 hours. I think that the film is at like almost 20,000 views. But the comments are killer. I did ask a question, like, what is your dream hunt? It's so interesting to see what people say. But this guy wrote, Gritty, I would have to say after watching a lot of videos, it would be grizzly bear. That seems like an awesome animal to hunt. I have no desires to get close enough to close the deal with a bow. When it comes to, he said, the predator-prey relationship, I'd like to be in the strongest position possible.
One of the first comments to that question was tiger.
Tiger? Oh, yeah. That was one of the dream hunts.
I had a good chuckle. What's your dream hunt, tiger?
Some people were extremely specific.
Mm-hmm.
Very specific. Your camera work and storytelling just keeps getting better and better. Lighter on content on this trip due to weather, but still loved it. Congrats on the cool moose, Brian, and keep up the awesome work. That was Joe Lyons. Kevin Davies said, I have been waiting for this film since it came out at the movie night, which was last year at the Hunt Expo in February, almost exactly 12 months ago. It came out just there. It's the only place we really showed it. Once there and once in Portland. He said, it really did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. The direction Gritty is going is fantastic, and saying I look forward for future series and publications is a grave understatement. Cheers, eh? Canadian. Cheers, eh?
Eh?
Eh? You know he's Canadian. Brian, another great video. The lightheartedness of this one had me smiling. I just got back in time from a youth elk hunt to see it the day after you released it. Keep up the good work. Really enjoyed this film. This is Lance Petrick. I've got a huge amount of respect for all the guides that spend a good part of their year in the wilds of BC, Yukon, Northwest Territory, and Alaska. Seeing Tanis and Doran seem to truly enjoy and understand the lands they guide on and are refreshing to watch and makes me want to go just to experience time with them, even if I didn't get to pull a trigger or loose an arrow. And that's one thing that's interesting. Like all of our hunts over the last couple of years primarily have been private or have been public land. Everything's been public land. But I did 2 hunts in 2018 that were guided, though. Mm-hmm. And that was Kodiak and that was British Columbia. And although in Kodiak I could have gone non-guided, I went with Cole Kramer. And, you know, it's great to learn from Cole because he's just super experienced. And we hunted Sitka Blacktail on Kodiak. And but the other guided hunt I did was with Dustin Rowe, Backcountry BC and beyond, or BC Backcountry and beyond. That's where I got to meet Tanis and Doran and hang out there with his crew. And you can't go and hunt moose in British Columbia as a U.S. citizen without hiring a guide. If you're going to go for a Canadian moose, it's got to be guided. There are some non-guided opportunities, I think, in Alaska, but typically, if you're going to hunt moose, it's pretty tough to go and get a giant moose. Go to a place where there's a giant moose without it being guided. Mm-hmm. And prior to being able to go on a hunt like this, I really did not like the concept of going with a guide, and I'm not a big fan of it now. I mean, if I can do it myself, I'm doing it myself.
I want to hunt the way I want to hunt, when and where. I don't need someone to tell me how or what to do.
But I hope people that watch this movie, this moose film, they realize that the coolest people I've been around and hunted with are a lot of those people are guides that are in the bush for 3, 4, 5, 6 months straight and never leave. Those people are different and they're cool, and they're some of the neatest people I've been able to spend time with. And my idea of what a guide is when you're dealing with, like what he said, with guides in country like that up north, they're different. And they're fascinating in a lot of ways. And they have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that they pass along. It's pretty cool. Stuart Taylor said, you have inspired me in so many ways. For the past 3 years, I've watched your videos and you keep getting better. I am always bummed when hunting season is over, but then I can count on you to fill that emptiness with your stories and insight. Thanks again for all the work you put into it. That was cool. 3 years he's been following along. That's pretty cool. I'll read one more here. John Zeter said, I don't know how you pronounce that name, but he said, great video. I enjoyed the cinematography and editing on this video. Your moose had some character. but it looked like there was far more character in your camp, which is true. Yeah, I can't say enough. He said, Evan Willie says, Brian, thanks for a great film. Between your moose hunt and getting to watch Randy Newberg get his this year, a northern BC moose hunt has gone on the bucket list. I've really enjoyed watching your 2019 season. So, man, just so many great comments. I really appreciate that people have taken the time to respond and
It's been fun following along, reading the comments.
Yeah, it just really inspires you to keep pushing and to keep delivering stuff that people value. And I just can't say enough, man.
2019 was a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. We've made some great connections with hunters and companies, that have been great this year. And you and I mean, basically I was a one-man show before you showed up. And the first year you were kind of borderline useless, more of just
here's the deal.
Dead weight.
I moved here under the pretenses of running a podcast, which is far different from producing some kind of film.
We're always adjusting and learning here, Brent. That's what Gritty's about. And so once you're able to produce a podcast, it's time for you to step up bring more value to the table. And you've done it. Brent's been pretty. Make no mistake, I'm the genius behind. I see a lot of great job, Brent. It's like whoa. I am the last word on edits.
It is, and sometimes it's hard because I know I have a vision of how I want it to be, but I also know that my vision has to include Brian's vision.
You're dang right.
And so it's not necessarily what looks good here. It's what will Brian think looks good here.
Well, and I'm always telling Brent, as much as I have an idea of what I want it to look like, I'm not paying you to try to figure out what I think. I'm paying Brent to tap into his own well of talent and creativity and put it on the screen.
The chopping block, more like.
I am a
man of strong opinions.
Yeah, and I will. When it comes to telling a story, there's it's on a scale of how well it's been told. And I just feel like they're natural storytellers, people that are pretty good at that. And Brent's one of those people. He's been that way since birth, and it's probably a family thing, But at the same time, Brent's attention to detail is not his strength.
I never got one. They didn't hand those out at school. I missed the day. I don't know.
And so sometimes you're just like Brent's productions are like this string of genius, and then just like a big, what the hell just happened? We took a hard right turn. Where are we going?
I haven't figured out how to stitch the next two pieces together yet.
Yeah. So,
but 2019 was great. 2020 is going to blow it out of the water, I think.
Well, I think, Lampers and I have quite a few hunts planned. What I'm excited to share is a lot of footage that doesn't include Ryan that we've captured this year that I think people are really going to enjoy as well. I mean, there's a lot that we've done. And I think moving into this next year, I still have I'd say 70% or 80% of my trips are like my backcountry film trips are still with Ryan. So we have some great adventures planned this year where we hope to, we go into all different places again. Like what we really want people to see is pick a state, pick an area, pick a species, over the counter, public land, and you can find big mature animals and come home with them. And I think, somebody said the other day to me, they said, Brian, I feel like your hunts aren't relatable. I don't think I can't see myself going and doing that trip because I'm not in shape enough, or I can't handle the cold like that, or I'm afraid I'll get lost and die out there, or whatever. I couldn't pack that animal out that far. But I was like, okay, but does it sort of make you feel like does it make you want to?
It's doable.
Try it someday?
You weren't doing this stuff 15, 20 years ago.
No, and I didn't do it it well when I tried it. You know, I remember coming back from a 12-mile eagle cap hunt, broken, and we split an elk between 3 guys and hiked it out 12 miles. Now I wouldn't think twice about that.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you just do that for someone?
But I also was using a Badlands 2200 pack and no support for it. And I mean, everything was wrong, you know, but I digress. Because what I was going to say is, even though the hunt is, I feel like the hunt is relatable in the sense that these are public land hunts. These are over-the-counter type of hunts. Mm-hmm. So from a dollar bill perspective, it's an everyman's hunt.
There's no barrier to entry. You bought those tags at a gas station.
And that relatability and that ability to go out and just do it. Anybody can get the tag. Anybody can go. That right there makes it an everyman hunt. The only thing stopping you from doing it generally is know-how or physical ability. And every human being, I feel, can, within reason, can improve in that space and make something like what we're doing a reality. That's what makes it inspiring. That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it compelling. To kill a buck like what Ryan took this year in his mule deer hunt, and he took another one in Montana a couple weeks later on a similar hunt in Montana, over the counter kind of thing. You look at that and it's like, the only thing that stops another guy from being able to do the same thing is know-how and fitness, really, you know? It's not dollars. And I think that is what makes it relatable and an everyman kind of hunt. And if you were to go out and buy the opportunity on a guided or private land place to go and hunt something like that, well, then it would be only relatable to anyone who had the money and the desire to do it that way. Mm-hmm. And that group of people, I think, is a lot smaller than your average Joe. You know, there's just something, I guess, inspirational about seeing it done on a public land over-the-counter type of opportunity. I'm not disparaging private property, because I love private property. I grew up hunting a lot of blacktails on private property, asking permission and so on. But there is that, you know, removing that barrier and just saying, hey, come out west, go to these 6 different states and get yourself a tag that's 1 or 2 points, or a draw or a quota hunt that's easy, and come out and do it. And everybody can. It's cool. So 2020,
it's going to be a big year for us.
That's what we're doing again. We're going to do it again. Anyway, today's podcast about the Alpacka Raft, check that out. Enjoy the podcast. Before you do, make sure you subscribe to our newsletter at briancall.com. Go up there, subscribe, and then we'll email you whenever we put up a new video. We did a video every Sunday for 4 weeks, and now we're going to take about a month off, and then we're going to come back and do it again. Our goal is every other month to put out a movie every Sunday. And I think we're going to pull it off for 2020, but
it's ambitious. It's ambitious.
That's the goal, and I hope y'all love it. And in the meantime, we're going to keep doing 2 episodes a week of the Gritty Podcast, trying to get those out Tuesdays and Thursdays. So there's always 2 shows a week. That's kind of the goals for 2020. And with a few extras in between when we get the chance and we have the content and a surplus of interviews and opportunities to record. But support us by going out there and subscribing to the newsletter. Support us by using the code GRITTY at Mountain Ops to save. If you got some orders and products you want to get at Mountain Ops, get yourself some trekking poles. We got these sissy sticks, which I can't say enough about these. I think you're going to spend over $200 for an equivalent pair at REI that are both carbon and aluminum. Ryan Lampers and I put these to the test. These things are incredible, and they're going to cost you, with our discount, like $100.
I think it's $115.
$115 or something.
About.
So that helps us out, and so do that, and also help our friend Heather out. If you got some backpacking trips planned, go to Heather's Choice. She makes killer meals and entrees, great breakfasts. If you like buckwheat, which I love, and she makes great packaroons as snacks, and there's more stuff on the way.
Try out the amarettos.
So you get 15% off at Heather's Choice if you use the code GRITTY. So for your next backpacking meal, use that code. Use that code and get some Heather's Choice. And I think that's kind of it for now.
I'm good.
And enjoy the show. Stay gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. Today I'm joined by my guest, Thor Tingey, owner of Alpacka Rafts. For those who have been following along with our mule deer hunt series, you've seen us use these awesome rafts to cross the river. And here we are with Thor, the owner, co-founder of Alpacka Rafts. Welcome, Thor.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk boats and hunting and all kinds of cool stuff.
So tell me about, I actually, have been stalking your website quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of cool videos on there as well.
Yeah.
And that's where I really learned about your mom, Sherry. Fill people in on how did Alpacka Rafts come to be?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short. It's a kind of funny, long story, but we've been around for 20 years, started in 2000. I was a 22-year-old college graduate. My mom was a 55-year-old empty nester. But it goes back a little further than that. My mom kind of grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, was like water skier and all this stuff. And she wanted out of Phoenix. And so she moved to Jackson Hole in the mid 1960s, became a ski bum before that was really a thing, and got super into whitewater kayaking. And my dad was a climbing ranger and rock climber. We moved to Alaska when I was 3. So I grew up in rural Alaska in a Park Service family, running around in Alaska national parks, pretty kind of remote, quiet Alaska time. And we did a lot of wilderness trips. So we'd go backpacking. We'd do a float trip every year. My dad and I would go fishing and hunting. I was obsessed with fishing. My parents were less obsessed with that. So every trip was like, well, we're going to be fishing that river if we're going to go float that river. And that was me. So I ended up at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and they have a grant program there for outdoor wilderness adventures called the Rick Kellogg Fund. And it was funny because I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what they would give a grant for. And I didn't realize, I think at that time, how much I had been privileged as a kid to grow up doing these wild wilderness adventures. And my parents said, well, you should talk to this guy, Roman Dial. He's a super famous adventurer from Alaska. He's cover of National Geographic. And so I met Roman in a coffee shop in Anchorage, and he tells me, well, you need to try packrafting. I'm like, well, what's that? And he's like, oh, you're going to go backpack, and then you're going to carry a little raft in your pack. When you get to a river, you can float down that river rather than stumbling along on the alders and the bank and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, but you need to, and here's an awesome route. It's 200 miles in the Alaska range. But you need a boat. And I'm like, well, what do I use? And he's like, well, you need this Sherpa pack raft, but they only made a few of them in the mid 1980s. And this was 1997. And I have one, but I'd never let you borrow it or sell it. They're worth too much. And none of my 5 friends that might have them would do that either. So you're going to need to go down to Kmart or Walmart or something, and you're going to need to buy this Seveler trail boat. And it's a vinyl $70 green, 3-pound little raft. And if you're careful, you'll survive in that boat. And that's pretty much what happened, was like full on survival boating, like epic 2-foot long tears in the boat, wet, cold, hypothermic. But
it looked like in the video, like some of the boats were fairly flat.
Oh, always flat. Like, you'd sit in a situation, you have to go through this mental calculus of, when we're really tired, we've been walking for 4 days, we'd love to get on this river, but if we do and then we blow out a boat, it's going to be a pain to fix it. And then if we get down to a section where we can't walk, what are we going to do then? So we ended up walking a lot of sections that we could have floated. So we do that trip, it kind of sticks. And then 2 years later, we got another grant from our college to do a 700-mile traverse across the Brooks Range. So 40 days in the backcountry, about 400 miles of walking, 300 miles of floating. And that was where I was like, this is just awesome. This is the way to travel in Alaska. But the boat sucked. I get back from this trip and I'm kind of excited on the concept, not excited on the gear. I think that's where a lot of successful gear stories start. Somebody comes up with an idea and they have something, and then the product doesn't exist. So they work on creating the product for that. So I come back. And my mom has this history. She'd been in outdoor clothing design. She'd made ski suits in Jackson Hole in the 60s and 70s. She made dog mushing suits in Denali Park, Alaska in the 80s. And she'd been a kayaker. So she was like, well, we can make a raft. I can figure out how to do this. I know how to work with fabric. And that's basically what we did in the basement. And just started with blue tarps and shower curtains, trying to figure out a shape, and then going from there. So we ended up making just a little open boat that had bigger tubes and tougher material. And all I wanted was something that would work for my backpacking trips in Alaska. It kind of kicked off there. So that's like 2001.
Yeah.
I was pretty actively involved for the next year and a half, but I was working as a fisheries biologist for the federal government at that time. And then I ended up going to law school in Portland, thinking that I was going to get into like fisheries policy. And, life sometimes takes funny turns. And I ended up becoming a corporate lawyer for 10 years while my mom took the business and slowly grew it and changed the product. And she's just kind of a passionate designer. And then 4 years ago, I came back to the business full time with my wife. And this is now what we do is run and design things. My wife manages sort of the administrative side of the business. I manage most of the manufacturing and product, and my mom does all the design work.
I've rafted. I mean, ever since I can remember, we would get tubes and raft the Deschutes River. We'd rent rafts and do them throughout the summer. We did a lot with our Boy Scouts and high adventure crew and stuff like that. And I would buy those tubes that we would backpack in and duck hunt out of. Yeah, we would backpack those fishing tubes in, and then we would they're no boat, right? And then we would hit the water and we would swim like half a mile to the other side and set up and duck hunt. And we kind of made do with stuff and bought a few of those Walmart rafts for $20, $30, $50, and they'll just rip right open on you, right on a seam or something. And
without warning.
Yeah. And so, fast forward, I ended up getting a boat from my buddy's a big time fly fisherman. And so he got a boat from, there's a few out there on the market, but
like a cat or like a watermaster, like a one person.
We had a watermaster, and then we also had the pontoon style too.
Same thing. Yeah.
But they were like 40 pounds still. And brutes. I mean, big rafts and heavy rafts, but light for, in comparison to what I had in the past with a full giant raft. But anyway, so we messed around with that for a while. Ryan Lampers, who was on this mule deer hunt with me a couple years back, they got a $20 Walmart raft that they brought to cross the river, and they about died. And the raft was losing air. I remember some other buddies were moose hunting, and all they had to do was get the moose across a short little bit of river. Yeah. And by the end, it was a race before the air would leak out, and half the moose was sinking before it could get there, and just a disaster. And so I first came across Alpacka Raft, I want to say 4 years ago, probably. And it was through Rock Slide. My buddy Ryan Avery had, I think it's the Moffats?
Yes. Yeah. Luke Moffat.
Yes. Yeah. And his wife, they had gone on a couple of, backcountry, I think caribou hunts or something, where they had those rafts. And they were describing these rafts, and they were like, yeah, they're 7-8 pounds. And I'm like, good luck with that. That thing's going to sink or it's going to rip open. I mean, there's no way possible to have a 7-pound raft that can actually do this job. I mean, I just dismissed it. I'm so skeptical and kind of moved on, and fast forward. And I just kept seeing people actually use them and then report back to me, you have got to check one of these things out. So sure enough, this year, Lampers and I were going into some deep country again. And the last time we packed in a Watermaster, and it's a fine boat, but to me, it's more of a car boat than it is a backpacking boat.
Yeah. What it's ideal for is that it's almost like side country for skiing or something like that, in the sense that your big raft, you're like, okay, I need a boat ramp because I don't want to take this boat anywhere. But sometimes there's those spots where the river's right there, or it's 200 yards away or something like that, or even a quarter mile. And it's like, I don't mind carrying a 40-pound boat, because once I'm there, I'm on the river. Exactly. Life's awesome.
But pack that thing like straight up, straight down 8 miles, that sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you even go past a mile, you're looking at multiple trips, and you're kind of like, I don't know if this is worth it anymore.
Yep. And so we decided this time, because we were going, the first time we used the Watermaster, we went a couple of miles and then we left the boat. This time we were going to go like 5 miles, use the boat, pack the boat another 5 miles, use the boat, pack the boat another 3 miles, use the boat. So we weren't leaving the boat. We were bringing, it was coming with us for most of the hunt. Just logistically, it's too heavy and you can't split up the weight. It's still an additional 40 pounds on what we were carrying, around 60 to 70 pounds with camera gear and optics. And so it just wasn't feasible. And so that's when I was like, if we're going to do something like this, we need to get an Alpacka Raft. So then we reached out to you and we got the boat. Again, I mean, I thought it'd be cool. It so far exceeded my expectations. I was pretty much blown away. And by the way, we used it backwards and it was still incredible.
they go both directions. Fortunately, the one you had is fairly straight, so you can paddle it either way. But it's definitely built so the valve's always in the back.
And it described to me. Well, before that, I want to get into that. But this raft was 7 pounds. I mean, just incredibly lightweight. Blowing it up was a cinch, and getting across the river, the thing was built. It just seems like it can take a beating. We haven't really banged it through the rocks or anything yet, but we were really impressed. And one of the things that impressed us was when we were in the previous boat, the rapids would just sweep us downriver. And so here we are trying to cross. And unfortunately, what we'd end up doing is drifting 200 yards downriver and crossing, and then carrying the boat back up to a spot to cross, and repeating. This Alpacka Raft just stayed right there, level, just cut right over the rapids.
Yeah, that's by and large. We've kind of, with my mom coming from a kayaking background, and we've had some really good employees over the years that are good kayakers, and I've taken up kayaking in the last 5-6 years. Being able to apply what kayaks can do. I mean, if you compare our boats to a kayak, they fall far short in terms of speed and performance and stuff. But when you start comparing them to other inflatables, they're way closer to the kayak realm. And we've emphasized that over the years, and it results in a much better performing boat, kind of get where you need to go.
Would it do the same thing if it was a self-bailing bottom?
Yeah.
If I had a different bottom, would it drag more?
Not necessarily. The self-bailing floors drag a slight bit more, but not
noticeably.
Real noticeable. It gets noticeable when you start running hard whitewater, like class 4 and above. So,
okay. Which I just wondered. We got it with the solid bottom for what we're doing. It seemed ideal, and it did. It worked great for what we were doing.
We took we did a caribou hunt in the Arctic this year, and we didn't take any self-bailers with us on that trip, and it worked great. We didn't have any real whitewater, but we had lots of little waves and riffly sections, and we were super happy not having those. And they save weight because the self-bailing floor, when you put holes in the floor, you've got to put an inflated structure in there to cause the floor to ride up above the water line, and that adds weight and complexity.
Gotcha. Yeah, we loved it. And so getting into the actual design of the boat, when we hopped in it, we didn't really think about forward or backward. We were like, it'll work any way we want. Like, it just went.
Yeah.
But the question I have is, why is it designed the way it is? Because the front is actually a little more bulbous and bigger than the back. And the back is narrower and lower. So what's that about?
So on that particular boat, we've got 3 hull shapes. What we call the classic hull, which is 90% of the pictures anybody's ever seen of an Alpacka Raft are of that classic hull. That's what we've been making for a long time. And then we have a hull called the Rally hull, which is more of our whitewater focused hull. And then what we have is the cargo hull, which is kind of, you take the stern from the Rally hull. So it's a big high volume stern, low to the water. And then you put on a square front to it. And the point of the square front, that big kind of bulbous front, is it has a fair amount of rise up there, so that when you hit a wave, it'll ride up and over the wave. But more importantly, we originally designed that. We were trying to design a boat for bike packing, and we have that boat called the Caribou now, and it has the same front on it. And what we were trying to do, because we saw all these pictures out there, and we experienced it ourselves, where you throw a 30, 40 pound fat bike on the front of a boat, and then you see the boat and it's like tilted forward. It just goes up on end.
Yeah.
So we designed that front end to have more air volume with more of a connection to the water, so that when you put a heavy object up there, that it doesn't cause the boat to tip forward. Well, we immediately were like, this is perfect for hunting, because typically, even when you're going in on a hunt, or especially if you're coming out and you've tagged an animal, you're going to throw all that weight up front. And if you've got this big square boxy front end that can float all that weight, you put it up there and then you steer it from the back, and you're good to go.
It seems like it can handle quite a load. We brought the Mule with us. And so you have a number of designs, and the Mule happened to be the lightest boat that you make.
In that style.
In that style. Like kind of the hunting style.
Exactly.
Which basically gives me the ability, I think that boat max load capacity is 500 pounds.
Yeah, and it'll hold more than that. That's what we put on for basic safety reasons. But they'll float an incredible amount of weight.
Well, and it's 7 pounds, and then we have the cargo hole. And so describe that to people. And how did you come up with that idea and have it actually work? Because I got to tell you, like, it's a little unnerving having a zipper that large that can just fail, and then your boat doesn't work.
Yeah, so that's the cargo fly, which is it's an airtight zipper installed, in our case, in the stern of the boat. So it's a zipper that has a rubber extrusion on it that allows the zipper to seal and prevent air from leaking out. It is unquestionably the best innovation in terms of improving the capabilities of Packrafts, and also the most frustrating innovation that we've done ever by far. And it just goes right to sort of the reliability of it versus the practicality of it. And what it does is it allows you to essentially, if you open the zipper up, suddenly you can get inside the tubes of your boat. And when you think through that, there's a lot of volume in there. So you can shove all your gear inside those tubes. And you have to be a little careful. You want it evenly balanced left to right.
And then you can have attachments and dry bag accessories where you can attach your gear in the tube so it doesn't shift.
Exactly, especially on all the single model boats like that. And then you want to make sure that your hard stuff, like if you've got a stove or something, that's not on the bottom, because if that hits a rock in the river, hard rock between a hard stove, then you're going to puncture a little hole. But as long as you put your soft stuff on the bottom, it's good to go. Keeps the weight down low in the boat, which makes the boat even more stable and handles better. And it also keeps all your gear dry. I mean, it's literally inside a sealed air chamber. So it doesn't matter how miserable the weather is. You're floating in the river all day. Everything inside is dry. And then if you need to keep your stuff out for the day, you keep that on the front of the boat. But that zipper goes back to probably 2009 is when the idea popped up. Mm-hmm. People had kind of mentioned to us over the years, hey, it'd be really great if we need a place for our gear, because you're kind of limited in this boat. You could strap a pack on the front, but that's it. What if we could put gear inside the tubes? And we kind of initially waved off those, like, how is anybody going to do that? Yeah. And it just so happened that the rep who repped our fabric supplier also happened to be the rep for T-Zip, which makes this zipper. He's like, have you thought about this zipper? And we're like, oh, well, let's try it. And so we started testing them, and we started testing, I think the first one was late 2010. And
I remember seeing a zipper like that on the Sims backpack.
Yeah, exactly.
And then and I was at a fly fishing show, and it was filled with air, and they were like, yeah, stand on it. And I stood on it, and it didn't burst open or anything. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're amazing zippers. They've been around for 25 years. They're really commonly used. You're not going to believe this, but one of their most common uses is, I don't even know if there's any place in the U.S., but if you go overseas, especially like to New Zealand or probably to Australia, they have these ridiculous summertime ski area things where they're called zorbing balls, and it's like a giant clear ball that is a 2-layer ball. And so it's inflated on the outside, and then it's got an inner chamber that has water in it. And you go into the inner chamber, they inflate the ball around you, and then they send you down a toboggan run on a ski thing. And the ball is just like turning over, but you're sliding in the water. So you have no control of where you're going. But you're in a giant inflated chamber.
That's wild.
Yeah, totally wild. So, but you got to get somebody inside that thing. So they're using those zippers for that. So they unzip the ball,
Wow.
they put you inside of the thing, then they blow the whole ball up and kick you off the hill. And oh my
Wow.
gosh. So
Okay.
it's classic New Zealand, whatever it is, they'll figure out some crazy way to do something. But the zipper is a huge game changer in terms of the amount of gear you can take, and then in also the performance of the boat, especially, whitewater is a big focus of ours. So being able to put your gear inside the boat, keep the boat stable, and not have a big pack on the front makes it easier to run harder and harder whitewater. But for, sportsmen, hunting and fishing, it makes a huge difference too, because you put all your gear in, and then if you've got an animal you need to move out, you can put some of it inside, and then you can put the rest of it up on top, but it gives you just that much more storage. But the zippers are not without their challenges.
Yeah.
But that kind of goes into a lot of our design philosophy. Since we come from a background of wilderness travel, especially in Alaska, where nobody ever wants to hit an EPIRB, and you need to be self-sufficient to get yourself out. Everything that we've done design-wise on the boats has always had a background of this needs to be something that does not prevent a person from getting out in the field if they have a problem with this part. For example, if you look at our seams on our boats, those are all stitched and then taped twice. So we actually stitch the entire boat together with a sewing machine, and then we tape to seal the air in. And we tape it twice. And the reason for that is you could just weld the pieces of the boat together, and that could make a really strong, really lightweight boat. But if a weld fails, you've suddenly got a huge hole that, short of having really in-depth experience in hand sewing and gluing, you can't fix that in the field. The average person can't fix that in the field. Whereas if the tape fails on one of our seams, you still got sewing there. The boat is structurally intact. You suddenly have a leak, but you can repair it with Tyvek tape. You can repair it with Aqua Seal. And even still, the leak's going to be low enough, you're going to get out on your trip. So everything we do, we try to make our boats never have a problem, but we think through, like, if this has a problem, can a person fix it in the field and get out of there?
Yeah.
That T-zip zipper, there are other airtight zippers on the market, but that one in particular is self-healing, meaning that if the zipper chain pulls apart, you can clean it out, back up the slider, and then reclose the zipper. And they can be maddeningly frustrating in a high sand environment if you don't take care of them. Like, a lot of people struggle to kind of deal with the sort of maintenance of that. And I think about it from the standpoint of, like, if you're carrying around a rifle, you have to be careful with certain things, because otherwise you not just dropping it, but getting water down the barrel if you don't have a stainless barrel, even if you do have a stainless barrel, and just other stuff, and making sure that you're paying attention to those things so that when the time comes, you're not dealing with some rifle that's going to have an issue on you.
Yeah. And on our hunt, it dropped to negative 10 degrees, and of course we get the boat a couple days before we leave. You guys mad rush put it together for us, which was awesome. We hit the water, of course, and we cross, we hike, we cross, we hike, we cross, we hike. Well, in these temperatures, we got a lot of ice building up around the zipper, and there's some maintenance stuff you should do around waxing and take care of the zipper. Well, we're kind of sloppy and in a hurry, and we get some ice in there, and then of course the zipper's not closing. And so it's got a slow leak basically as we're crossing the river. And so, we had to take a little bit of time to warm up the zipper and melt the ice that we allowed to build up around the zipper. And the ice was a problem across the board on every piece of gear. It's just ice, and those temperatures, things break. It's so cold. We were careful about that. When you have the valve, I'm like, it's frozen on there. And so you're warming it up and carefully, trying to do all this stuff. But in the end, everything worked like it's supposed to work. And we really put it to the test. But that zipper did cross my mind a few times. Like, if I was going to get dropped in the Brooks range, like you described, where we were at, if the boat did fail, it wasn't the end of the world. But in some places, if that zipper failed, I'd be a little it'd be a big problem. So there's a part of me that's like, well, would I get a boat that's just a lot bigger, maybe, so I could carry more on deck and forego the efficiency of the cargo and the zipper and all that? Or would I just be mindful of it, take good care of it, and get the other one? You know what I mean?
You definitely want to get the zipper for almost all those trips, unless you really don't need it. And the reality of it, and we've looked at it, is if you take care of it, it's going to work super well for you. If you don't take care of it, it's still going to be repairable and workable for your trip with a moderate level of understanding of how it works and technical competency to fix it. It's not a rocket science thing. It may require some diligence and working with it, which you definitely experience. Okay. And it's a wear part. No zipper is going to last 10, 15, 20 years like our boat will. They're going to need replaced, on a 1 to 6 year basis, depending on use and care and all that stuff like that. And we replace them here, but I can only think of 1 or 2 situations where I've heard of in the last 9 years of installing these zippers, hundreds of zippers a year into boats, where we've had a customer that has had a problem with a zipper that prevented them from finishing the trip with a minimum level of competency. There have been people that have been like, have decided, I don't know if I trust it, but for the most part, everybody's gotten out on the trip and had a good time. Then they call us and we're like, yeah, we can fix that. There's only been 1 or 2 where it's like, oh yeah, I can see, I probably would have been able to fix it, but I can understand why you weren't.
Well, Cole Kramer, that was the first time I actually used one. I was on Kodiak Island, hunting Sitka blacktail with Cole Kramer, his guide up there, and Adam Foss, and we came out of the bush on an Alpacka Raft. I was blown away. Like, all the stuff we shoved inside the tubes was like, whoa, how much can go in here? And we filled that sucker up, got it all pumped up. Then we loaded the top with everything and then floated miles out. It was pretty sweet. I was like, Cole, I need one of those. It's settled.
Cole has I met Cole for the first time a year ago on Kodiak. So one of my good friends all the way back to high school is just an utter passionate, dedicated, traditional bow hunter. He's goes out to Kodiak for months a year. He lived there for a while. He's actually a rural doctor in Alaska, just so he can travel around and hunt stuff. But he's known Cole for a long, long time. So he's like, oh, we're going to stay at my buddy Cole's house. And Cole's like, oh, I want to check out these rafts. And he picked up a Forager, which is our biggest raft. And that's the one we specifically designed for more big game hunting. And he picked that up. And I think he sent me a picture from that trip you guys were on. And Adam was like, oh no, we have 9 Sitka blacktail inside this boat. I was like, what?
Yep. When you hunt with guides in Alaska, they do things with gear that no one should ever do. And, when it comes to even, float planes to boats to all of it, it's like, oh yeah, what? So it's a sight to behold. It's just like his tents are the same situation. They're pretty handy people though. Couple days before we landed, the bears came through, or no, not the bears, the blacktails, the bucks that were rutting, and they completely tore out the entire side of Barney's tents, and he had to go in and
like one of those Arctic ovens,
the big and he had to like stitch it. So they sewed it. It was like it looked like Frankenstein's, just.
Oh my gosh.
And so he stitched it and then he taped it all and sealed it. And it was functioning quite well. But how many people are prepared for that, right?
Yeah.
So back to the boat question. Another boat question I have for you is, as we're crossing the river, okay, the last couple of days, temps really dropped. Well, they built up over time. We started to have icebergs floating down the river to the point where, I mean, it's pretty, we were wondering if we could cross, you know, or like, oh my gosh, that's quite a bit of swift ice chunks coming. And we had to break apart about 6. You could walk on the ice about 6 feet out into the river on each side. So we had to break that down to get to the bank. And then, okay, now we're going to shoot the gap here and try to get across. But there's all this drifting ice, and maybe another day or two, and it could have froze solid on the surface. So, which if it freezes hard enough, I guess we would have walked across it, but at the risk of dying. Yeah. Not my favorite thing, but here we are getting ready to cross. And one thing I wondered was, you know, the raft being 7 pounds and the way it is, like how much can it take in terms of, you know, abrasions and hits and things like that?
So I'm gonna tell 2 stories about ice on that, because they're 2 of the most extreme trips that I know of that have ever been completed in the boats. One goes all the way back to 2006 or 7. Longtime friends of the company. They're a couple. They run a website called Ground Truth Trekking, and they were, I believe, their names are Aaron and Hig McKittrick, and they live up in Seldovia, Alaska, across the bay from Homer. I believe Aaron's from there. Aaron or Hig is from there, and they were in graduate school at University of Washington, and they got into packrafting. They're doing all these big adventures. They took a year, and this is back in 2006 with our little stubby original packrafts. Yeah. And they took a year and they walked from Seattle, Washington. They literally walked out the front door in downtown Seattle. They didn't even get a ride out of town. And they walked from there to Dutch Harbor, Alaska.
What?
Yeah. 1 year they were on the trail, walked up the Inside Passage, up and over and through the Alaska coastline, through Prince William Sound, down the Alaska, through Iliamna, and then all the way down the Alaska Peninsula and out to the end. So they were gone for a year. They went through the winter, and they took one pack raft each the entire time. We didn't replace a boat for them, and they paddled it on the ocean. They paddled on rivers, and then in the winter they used it as a sled, and they drug it with skis filled with gear for 4,000 miles, whatever that is.
What?
One boat, yeah. So, which just blows my mind. Like, that's such a gigantic adventure. Mm-hmm. And then just a few weeks ago, it's funny, we didn't even really realize that he was using our boats. There's a famous Norwegian explorer named Borge Usland, Ousland. And he's a Roald Amundsen fan, like big time, like modern Arctic explorer. Has a whole bunch of first polar expeditions to his name. Uh-huh. So he and his adventure partner, a guy named Mike Horn, Borge's from Norway and Mike is from South Africa, I believe. They did a several month expedition going over the North Pole, unsupported. So they left Nome in a sailboat, sailed up the Bering Sea into the Arctic Ocean, low sea ice, as the Arctic Ocean is warmed significantly. So they sailed north to about 85 degrees north until they ran into thin sea ice. And then they got out onto that sea ice and they walked for, I think it was 80 or 90 days over the pole so they did an actual continent to continent crossing, Alaska over to Norway, over the pole. And they're going over this thing. Well, they end up bringing 2 pack rafts because the sea ice up there, you've got thick sea ice that's old sea ice, you've got thin sea ice that's new sea ice, and you've got open leads and water and all this stuff. And they had to walk through all of that, walk and ski. And so they had sleds that they were carrying, but then they had pack rafts so that they got to open water leads. They would paddle across them, towing the sleds across them on the pack rafts. And then they also had the pack rafts inflated the whole time so that, they're walking along. Sometimes they're just on 1 inch of sea ice, which is, I guess, really spongy and flexible like a waterbed. And, they're in full immersion dry suits 100% of the time. Polar night, winter, dark. And if and occasionally they're walking along, you see pictures of them just like in just miserable conditions, and suddenly you punch through and you're in the Arctic Ocean, like in 1 inch of ice, and you got to scramble up on top, get the pack raft, and then they're like in the pack raft on their knees, pulling themselves along on the thing. I'm just like, that is a level of suffering that I don't need to experience in my life.
I like challenge, but that's way out there.
Yeah. So the expedition got coverage in major international media, BBC, stuff like that. But we see this come out and we're like, hey, those are our boats. They're sleds. So pretty cool stuff.
That is
But
cool.
that tells you what the abuse that they can take.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that I wondered about, and the first thing that comes to mind, people say this about, we have Seek Outside tents that we use a ton, and they have the new Dyneema Cuban fiber, and we're running the portable titanium stoves with it, and people think, they always say to me, well, if that shelter weighs 1.5 pounds and the competitor weighs, 3 to 4 pounds, well, then obviously it's not durable. It's not as durable. And it's like, actually, Cuban fiber is incredible material. Someone goes, unless it's space age material. I'm like, well, yeah, it is.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's the old saying, what is it? Light, cheap, strong, pick two.
Yeah. And that's what you think, like, with the Alpacka Raft is, well, it's so light, it must not be durable, or it's probably really fragile. And so even us, as we're using it to cross the river and there is ice chunks and everything, we're like, what's it going to do? Like, how much of a beating can it take? And we gave it a beating, but not enough to, we didn't float it hours and days down rivers and really bang it up yet to see. So that's good to know. So
yeah, we specifically, there's a couple of things that we do design wise towards that. Some is the actual fabric technology itself. We actually source all of our fabrics and get them laminated in the United States. We get a little higher quality product because of that. But we looked for a long time, and a couple of things that we've learned over the years that have allowed us to have a lightweight but really high level of durability is, our main fabric is a 210 denier nylon, and so we've chosen that because it kind of meets the right weight and tear strength stuff. And people sometimes just think any 210 nylon is like any other 210 nylon, and that's not true. So company that actually produces the nylon yarn, they can produce nylon yarns in various different things, emphasizing either tensile strength or tear strength or stretch, and each time you change one, you might compromise on another. And so we're kind of looking for that blend. And then how that nylon's woven together also affects that. So if you have a really tight weave, you end up with lower stretch and a better abrasion resistance, but you end up with also lower tear strength, because if you think of like a gunny sack, which has really weak fibers, but they're really loosely woven, if you try to tear gunny material, it doesn't tear at all. Versus if you have a really tightly woven fiber, it just like if you put a book down on a sheet of paper, you can tear it really smooth and just pulling against it. So you take that, and then so we use a polyurethane coating, and traditional rafts all use heavyweight PVC coatings. And PVC is very affordable and is very durable, but it's not very abrasion resistant, and it's heavy. So we went to urethane. It's a lot more expensive, but it has incredible abrasion resistance. And then the company that laminates our fabric specifically does it in a way that results in higher levels of slickness. So there's not much stick in that fabric. So when it hits a rock in the river, the boat's lightweight, it's under low pressure, it deforms and then just glides over that. So we're always kind of fiddling with that. And when we're talking with our suppliers, the conversation is always kind of like, well, what do you want out of this? Do you want better adhesion of the urethane? Do you want more tear out of the fabric? And so we're going to select different characteristics depending on whether they're working with the tube fabrics or the floor fabrics. And everything's kind of focused on that, is ending up with the kind of the optimum level of performance combined with durability. So we could, in theory, create a boat that was a little stiffer and under higher tension, so it feel firmer when you paddle it, which can improve the performance, but we would give up something along the lines of durability.
Makes total sense. I want to get into hypothetical situations in terms of hunts that
Yeah.
we do, and then the right boat for the job. But before that, I want to ask you about a couple of accessories in the terms of the paddles.
Yep.
All the different paddles, and then the dry suits that you've got. Because, Ryan and I were looking at it. We have, I don't remember which paddles we got. They're great paddles. They're super, super, super lightweight.
Yeah, probably. You either probably got the Aquabound Shred, which is kind of a heavier duty paddle. It's still a lightweight paddle, 4-piece one. It's not kind of an all black 4-piece, or something along the lines of an Aquabound Whiskey or a Werner Corey Vrecken, which are higher performance pedals.
We got a 2-part. In fact, the paddles seem so wafer-like, thin and fragile. Like I was worried that we could break it off on a rock or something. And I noticed you got a million.
Not paddling. If you're trying to pry it off a rock, probably, but not paddling.
Okay, so we're sitting there and we're looking at. There's a lot of selection. There's actually quite a few paddles to choose from. So, what paddles? How does a guy know what to get?
I always steer people in 2 directions with the paddles. We carry there are hundreds of paddles on the market, and then we carry a kind of a curated selection of that for what we think is the best for pack rafting. And we kind of break ours down into, we have high performance paddles that are kind of whitewater paddles. So if you're not on the whitewater, you don't need a high performance Werner paddle. They're amazing. If you paddle whitewater, you just kind of they're stiffer. They have move water better, but you don't need them for general purpose paddling. And then from a general purpose perspective, we carry, I would kind of divide it into 3 categories. We carry mostly Aquabound brand paddles, which are really good, but we also have some Werners and some Sawyers in there. And the most common paddle that I'd recommend to hunters is the Aquabound Shred Carbon. And
Looks
it's
like
a lightweight
the
paddle.
Whiskey.
The Whiskey. Okay. So the Whiskey is an amazing paddle. I think it's probably the highest end paddle we carry because it's ultra light, stiff, really, really nice paddle to paddle. And that's kind of, when you're looking for a paddle, the stiffer the paddle is and the better the stiffer the blade is, then the more power transfer you'll get from your hands and arms into the paddle blade to propel you forward. Yeah. The Whiskey what's really great about the Whiskey is it's ultra light. So if you're doing traditional, if you're going to go deep into the backcountry and you need to save ounces everywhere possible, the Whiskey's only, I think, 24 ounces as a 4-piece paddle, which is just incredibly light. And then the Shred Carbon on the other end is more like a 36, 38 ounce paddle. So you're adding 12 ounces of weight, but you're getting a bigger blade face. You probably chop firewood with that paddle. It's so tough. Okay. Whereas the Whiskey's, you're going to be a little more careful with it, but as long as you're careful, it's going to get you anywhere you need to go.
Yeah. One thing that was irritating is that Ryan Lampers is way better at boating than I am. like he spent some time fly fishing or just fishing as a fishing guide for years. He spent a lot of time in pontoon boats and then just paddling boats. And I don't know how much time maybe in a kayak, but all I did was muscle around like giant inflatable rafts, and canoes and stuff. So here we are in this actually very performance oriented maneuverable machine. And that Lampers is just like, just paddling along, going anywhere he wants, cutting the river, seeing the ripples, reading the water, cutting between boulders and rocks and rapids, and just goes over no problem. And I'm in there like just wailing on the water, digging way too deep with the paddle, pushing the boat too far one way and not the other way. It's not a log. It's not a dugout canoe I'm trying to move. And it was cool. Toward the end, I started to get a little feel for it, but it did irritate me that he was so much better at it.
Oh, that's funny. It's paddling is there's a handful of sports out there where whether it was as a kid or whatever, but if you've got experience in them, the ability to be efficient makes all the difference in the world. Yeah. I think like swimming. If you grew up swimming or a competitive swimmer, you can jump in a swimming pool 30 years later and swimming's not hard.
Yep.
Whereas you could be in the best shape of your life and what have you, and if you don't know how to swim, you are going to suffer you try to get across the other side of the pool.
I did. I swam in college in intramural sports and stuff.
Yep.
And I swam a little bit I love swimming, and that's just
Yeah.
been since birth. And I
Yep.
remember my parents, my dad, like they threw me in the water. We were water skiing and just chucked me in there off a boat
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere and was like, keep swimming, you know.
Keep swimming.
And it was, I remember being real scared out in the middle. It felt like you were in the middle of the ocean, you know, wanting to get
Yeah.
back in the boat, but you figure it out. But when it comes to the paddling, yeah, I could see the efficiency that Ryan maneuvered the water versus me. And it didn't take long, like watching him and then kind of going, okay, this is how I can
Yeah.
tweak it. And I figure, you do a week long, boating trip and
Kayak
you're going
course.
to have
Oh,
some
it makes a big
skills.
difference.
Yeah. For the
Yeah.
rest of your life.
I went to a kayak school 2 years ago. My wife sent me there for my 40th birthday, and I still remember this. Our paddling instructor, just artful paddler, just
Yeah.
everything was beautiful. No wasted motion, no wasted movement anywhere. And we're out there, and we were running this really hard class 4+ rapid that had this little move where you couldn't see it coming. You just kind of had to blind faith, like you're going to go at this rock, and then you're just going to launch over this 8-foot drop and into this pool. And first day we go out there and he shows us how to do it. And this other guy that was with us, and if you don't do it right, you fall sideways and get beat up in the
Right.
in the waterfall. So first day, instructor goes off and you just see him disappear, and you're like, okay, I go where he goes, and it goes well. But this other guy in my course, he goes off it, sure enough, falls sideways, gets beat down the pool. We swims out of his boat, comes out. Next day we go back there, instructor, and he's sitting there and he's like, okay, you guys remember this one? Yeah. And he's like, turns around and he goes, so Adrian, if I take 4 strokes to get to that edge and go off that lip, how many strokes should you take? And he was like, 10. You should take 10 strokes.
Yep.
Like, don't try to emulate me until you've got my efficiency. Go where I go, but
Right.
battle harder.
Do what you got to do given your stage. Yeah. The other question I had was around the wetsuit, the dry suits.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. If you backpacked in, because how much do they weigh?
So we used to have our own dry suit that was made for us by Kokatat, and it was the challenge with it was an awesome suit. It was under 2 pounds. It was really good, but the challenge is we went so far down into the realm of lightweight fabric that it was delicate, and our boats aren't delicate. And when you got customers that buy one product from you that's built to just be abused, and you buy another product that's like, you have to be very delicate with this.
Yeah.
They get disappointed with the delicate product. Some people love it, but other people, they buy it and they use them every day and they only last a couple months. So it's kind of like a quiver piece suit. So now we're selling Kokatat's Swift Entry dry suits, really nice suit made in Arcata, California. And it's pretty affordable. So I think it's $600, which in the world of dry suits is pretty affordable. And it's 2.5 pounds, really durable, kind of will last several seasons, pretty heavy duty use. I love dry suits for dry suit necessary things. So
explain that.
So if the water is cold and there's a decent chance of you swimming, whether that means you're a whitewater boater and you're paddling harder stuff, or even maybe you're not a whitewater boater and you're like, oh, we're going to go do this, and this river's going to have some class 2 to 2+ rapids that a highly skilled boater would never even worry about swimming or flipping their boat in that. You're like, I need to pay attention to that. Flipping in your boat without a dry suit means you're going to get really cold and really wet. And I've experienced that. That's the early days of pack rafting. Roman Dial calls it shiver boating. You're shivering all day inside your boat because you're soaking wet and cold. That's when you want a dry suit. But for a lot of uses, the pack rafts are so stable, and what you're paddling on is a much lower risk of flipping, and you kind of are a confident paddler. You don't need to bring a dry suit. But that's always when we're doing backcountry stuff, you can't bring the kitchen sink, so you're always going to take compromises on what it is. But I'm going to tell you
you're basically saying, that it's a valuable piece of equipment when you actually need it for the type of water you're hitting.
Yeah,
but not all the time.
Exactly, and it's not hard to figure that out. I'm a huge believer in good judgment is a far better skill and indicator of success than good gear.
Yeah.
I can go do a trip down a really gnarly class 4 river with our smallest, lightest boat with no spray deck or no self bailer and with no dry suit if I exercise good judgment. And that means every time we get to a rapid that I would love to paddle with a dry suit and a whitewater boat, I'm going to get out, I'm going to walk around that rapid. So nothing's an issue.
Right. Makes total sense.
So just kind of exercising that. But a couple years ago, I was on a fishing trip in Western Alaska, and Patagonia sponsored the trip. And they sent us these new lightweight packable waders called the Middle Fork waders. And they're 24 ounces. And I wore them on the trip, and I was like, man, these waders are pretty sweet. Like, I stayed dry the whole trip. We had miserable rain, and we weren't on any kind of whitewater, so we were just wearing waders and rain jackets. Right. Well, the next year we went back to Western Alaska and did another trip. And I went there, and my wife was with me, and we took these waders, and we had miserable weather. We did 180 miles, 90 miles of walking, 90 miles of floating. And my wife walked all 90 miles in her waders, and I walked probably 60 of the miles in the waders. And they held up, 26 ounce, super light waders. I then, 3 months later, took them to Kodiak, where I met Cole, went 10 days in the backcountry with them. We had miserable weather, just terrible weather. And I was, you've been to Kodiak. I was belly crawl stalking blacktails through all that stuff, still maybe one tiny hole. And then I took them on my caribou hunt up in the Arctic this year and wore them 60% of the time on that hunt. So
what brand, what were they?
Patagonia makes them. They're the Middle Fork packable wader, and they're built for hike it up into mountain lakes and go and fly fishing. Right. But I think they're the greatest.
I can't remember. There's a classic pair that Cole uses on Kodiak. Okay. I can't remember. A lot of the guides use them. Yeah, I'm blanking right now what they are, but they're a little bit heavier than what you're describing.
Yeah, these are backpack weight. I don't think I'd take them on, a lower 48 hunt where I was just going to cross some rivers. But if you're going to Alaska and you're going to be tromping around the backcountry, hunting and floating, if you're not needing a dry suit, a really lightweight pair of waders is the way to go.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good info. Looking at the boats here, I'm on your website at alpaccaraft.com, and here we have, I have the mule. I bought the mule.
Yep.
And then, scrolling down, you have your classic, your expedition, you have the Wolverine Narwhal, the Explorer 42, and the Forager Scout and the Caribou. Now, I almost got I was looking at the Explorer. I mean, really, that was kind of for what we were doing, what crossed my mind. You mentioned the Caribou earlier. Describe to me the difference. Let's talk about first of all, the boat that we got, the mule.
Yep.
It's 7 pounds, 7 to 9 pounds, depending on extras and additions you get on there. What is that boat ideal for?
So the mule started about 10 years ago, and we had our first boat. We called it the Yukon Yak, and the second boat we called it the Alpacka, which was a 3-inch shorter version of the Yukon Yak, and the third boat we had was the Llama, the Denali Llama, and that was a 3-inch longer version of the Yukon Yak, and that was our boats.
Yeah. Until
probably 2009 or 10. And those boats still live in our classic, what we call the classic now. Okay. So the small in the classic is the old Alpacka, the medium is the Yukon Yak, and the large is the old Denali Llama.
Gotcha.
And kind of 2010-ish, we had enough larger guys, 220 pound plus guys, long legs, what have you, that were like, the Denali Llama is tight for me. It's a little small. Maybe I want some extra gear. So we made a boat called the Mule, which was the Denali Llama, 3 inches longer, but we made it wider in the front. So there's more foot room because, as you get into a 6'4", 240 pound guy, they probably have size 14 feet.
Yep.
So, but it was based on the classic hull thing. So if you look back, if you look on our website and you look at the classic, that's the main boat shape that we've had for over 10 years.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
In 2017, we came out with a boat called the Narwhal, which was a high performance whitewater boat. And it has an extra panel of fabric in the stern that gives it more volume and more buoyancy in that stern. which is great for running bigger volume whitewater because you stay on top of the water. The narwhal's been really successsul for us, and we're like, okay, that stern's really cool. Then 2018, we come out with the boat called the Caribou. And the Caribou, I mentioned before, is our bike packing boat. And we take the stern on the Classic, the little bit lower volume stern, and then we put an extra panel of fabric in the bow this time so that we have more volume in the bow, and it creates that nice platform for putting a big object like a bike on the front.
Yeah.
So 2019, I'm like, we need to redo the mule, because the mule we've got now, it's based on the Classic, and the narwhal holds more weight. We already know that. And the Caribou's got this great bow. We already know that. And so if we're really going to, if you call me and you're like, hey, I'm 6'4", 240 pounds, or you call me and you're like, I'm going hunting, or I'm taking my dog somewhere, I need a boat that has more space and carries more. Said, well, let's make the new mule, and let's take that stern of that narwhal, that big high volume stern, and then put the Caribou bow on it.
Yeah.
And that's how we got to the new mule. And so that boat is still a single person boat, and it's ideal for any time a single person is either in that over 6'2", over 220 pound range. And it's also ideal for a more typical sized adult who is going to be bringing a dog somewhere, or is going to be typically going hunting and needing that extra space.
Yep.
If they tag an animal, to get that animal out. You can get an animal out on a Classic. People have done it. People have done it for years. Guys, our very first year we sold boats, back when we had these little tiny things, they went and shot a bison up the, I believe up the Chitna River in Alaska. And literally, we're talking a boat that's 5.5 feet long. And they loaded the whole bison on it, and they laid on top of the bison to float out. It's like,
nuts.
So you can do it, but the mule is really optimizing having this moderate weight, the 7-pound weight thing, so it's comfortable putting a backpack. But then when you're floating out, you've got plenty of room to get you and a medium-sized game animal out.
Now, we used the mule and we ferried back and forth. So you could throw like 100-pound pack and gear and stuff, and a guy, ferry that across, go back, pick up the next backpack and gear, go back, and then then we picked up a guy. And so there's 2 people that could fit in there and come back. Now, one of the things that Lampers did, he knelt down in the boat toward the front and rowed across. And I asked him, "Do you want to sit in the back?" And we didn't inflate the seat or anything back there, And he's like, "Well, I don't know. It feels really good right here, just to pull it across." And we were just playing around with the boat, didn't really experiment other ways. But he liked being, up on his knees like that. But I wonder if it would have been more comfortable sitting back with the pack in the front. Give me some insight there.
So if you're going to be in the mule, we'll take the mule, and we should chat about the Explorer 42 next, because it's just a little bit bigger than the mule, and it's kind of optimized for that specific use.
Yep.
So the mule is going to be just, if you're like my size, 6 feet tall, you're going to have, if you put your legs out straight, you're going to have 6 inches of room in front of your legs before you're in the bow. And so if you put 2 people in that boat, if you try to get them both sitting down, you're going to be sitting in each other's laps unless you're facing each other. When you're sitting in each other's laps, it's really hard for that rear person with the paddle to paddle the boat to get across the river. Whereas if you kneel, suddenly your center of gravity is going to go up to the front, where we've got that big high volume bow. And so you're going to feel comfortable because you can hold on to the front, and then the person in the back can steer the boat and paddle around. The one thing, though, is if you're kneeling in the front of that boat and you hit a rock, you'll notice it.
There's no padded floor. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's for sure.
But we did have butt pads that we
perfect
glass from. And so we were kneeling down on those pads. But going to the mule, 7 pounds, I knew it was going to be pretty tight, and it was saving me about a pound and a half or so, about a pound, it looks like.
Yeah. The Explorer 42.
Over the Explorer 42.
Yeah.
In hindsight, the Explorer 42 might have been the better choice just because you add that extra pound of weight, but you get quite a bit of value out of that.
You get a full foot of interior room, which allows that front person to sit down with their legs in front of them. And you get a seat specifically designed to accommodate two people tightly, but in a way that ferries across. So if you're one boat, two people in a ferry kind of job, I think that's the ideal boat.
Yeah.
I will say that I think if you're don't have two people, the mule is still more maneuverable overall.
Yeah, that would make sense. I did, with us, the mule did the job, no question. But if it would have been a little more comfortable to have a little extra room.
Yep.
The other thing was fewer ferry trips. The Explorer 42 has a 600-pound max rating, where you're at 500, and of course we talked about how they can carry more.
Yeah.
But that you get that extra capacity as well in terms of hauling capability. Maybe we throw 2 packs in there instead of 1. Yeah. And you make, just one trip. You just have that extra space. So it saves a little time, because a couple of those last ferry jobs out, we had a couple of deer we harvested. So here they are. We got these racks. We got all the meat plus all the same gear we packed in on. Now we're like, zoom, 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 back and forth. It took us quite a long time to get all the stuff ferried over. If we had just a slightly bigger boat, I think we could have shaved 1 or 2 trips across. Out instead of ferrying it 6 times, you ferry 4.
Yeah, and that's always the choice you're going to make. So it's funny because, you've got you, and then you mentioned Adam Foss, and then you got Cole, and all 3 of you guys went through a really similar decision-making process. Cole ends up getting the Forager, 14 pounds, biggest boat, but it fits his needs. He's like, I'm going to fly in with this thing. Yeah. I might be walking it around and stuff like that, but I'm not going to go on a giant backpacking mission with this. But I'm going to stick 9 blacktail in, and we're going to get out of here.
Right.
And then Adam was really trying to decide between the Explorer 42, the Mule, and the Forager. And because he'd used Cole's Forager, and he was like, I love that Forager, but 14 pounds, I don't know. I don't know and I told him, I said, I've backpacked with the Forager. You can do it, but you don't enjoy it. Like, it's perfect if you've got a specific mission of like, we're going to go in and hike into this river, and then we're going to float out. Sweet for that.
The thing is too, it's a 2-person. The Forager. You can fit 2 guys in there, and then you don't need 2 boats. You can bring 1. But then again, it's still 14 pounds that one guy's got to carry.
Yeah, which is way lighter than most stuff on the market, but you notice it in your pack. And so you describe your trip to me, and I'm like, no, if I had my druthers, that's not the boat I'd bring. If it's the only boat I had, I'd make it work. Yeah. And then, the Mule is your lightest, and it's perfect for one guy. But if you're in that ferry situation, you're going to make a few more trips.
Yeah. So Foss, it's funny because we were all trying to make our decisions, and we each bought a different boat.
Yep. And Foss kind of split the middle. He's like, I wanted to do some Forager things, but I don't want to carry the weight of the Forager. So he ends up with the X42.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to say that 42, that's probably the next boat. It's just the 1 pound heavier, but just gives you that little bit of more room. But then again, it's like, okay, so I had to make 2 extra trips and I shave a pound of weight. That's kind of nice. So,
it's kind of nice. And those trips in the end of the day, they don't cost you that much in terms of time.
Yeah. And part of that too, I was like, well, Lampers, get your own damn boat. Because if I'm not sharing a boat, then I'd rather carry 7 pounds. Like if it's just me getting over there, I don't want to carry an 8-pound boat. Why? When I could do a 7. But I will say this, hiking into 15 miles into a mountain range, but having a 15-mile float out is beautiful if you're a hunter, because it's one thing to pack in a 70-pound pack. It's another thing to pack out, a caribou in addition to your whole camp. It makes getting the actual meat out not so possible for a lot of guys. But with a pack raft, you carry in a 7-pound boat. all the way in there. That's totally doable. And then
Yep.
you're able to take, your 250-pound animal,
Yep.
all dressed out, add that to your boat and
Yep.
float out. Like that's a whole different ball game.
Yep.
It's a game changer.
And that's like where I always think of them as being the benefit. I try to look, even though I'm biased, I try to look at pack rafting as practically as possible. And there's lots of areas where a traditional raft is just all around better. If you're starting from a boat ramp, it's pretty nice to have all that stuff.
Right.
But there's, I growing up in rural Alaska, even then I still felt like if I could get to places where other people weren't going, that was often the difference for me in not just success, but satisfaction. Like whether that's even just backpacking and man, maybe only a couple people have been to this valley this year, or whether it's fishing and it's like, oh, we're going to this river that there isn't float planes going on to all the time because you have to walk a couple miles to get onto it. And then the same thing applies for hunting. If you can get further in, if you can float out, makes all the difference in the world.
We hit some stuff on Prince of Wales Island where we were black bear hunting, and we were wanting to get into these inlets and off of the ocean and into some spots, but you kind of needed to have a very portable raft, and we ended up using Watermaster for a bunch of that, and it sucked. Compared to, it's fun once you're on the water. Once you're on the water and you're in a decent boat,
But otherwise, it's impractical.
But when you're carrying it, So the one thing I thought to myself though is, I think if I was hunting mule deer and I needed a boat to bring it out, the mule is good. But if I want to step up to caribou or an elk, I really at a minimum should be running an Explorer 42.
At a minimum, yeah.
And
well, actually, so I'll tell you about the caribou. So the hunt we did this fall, really fun hunt, actually. One of the things I think people sometimes are looking for is an Alaskan experience that's DIY and reasonably affordable. Alaska is an expensive place. I adore it, but it's expensive to go there. That's one of the things I love about Kodiak. That's a super fun hunt that you can do DIY if you want. And there's lots of animals and stuff like that. But so we went up and we wanted to hunt we didn't want to charter a plane. So we wanted to hunt off the Dalton Highway up in the Arctic, but there's a 5-mile bow exclusion zone on the Dalton Highway. So if you're inside 5 miles of the highway corridor, it's bow hunt only, which is great. But it's also a pretty popular road hunt. People, you see camps all over the place and people are driving up and down the road and looking for caribou from their car. And then they're running around with their bows trying to chase them down. And we kind of didn't want that experience. Yeah. So we said, there's a lot of rivers off that highway. And we said, if we can hike into a river, hike 5 miles or more and get into the caribou, all we have to do is float back to the highway. And, that's that idea. You can get out past where most people will travel, but you have an easy method back.
Right.
And guys have been doing that, but we had this awesome experience and we floated and hiked in and we ended up getting 9 miles back before we got into animals. We had rifles and we had bows with us, and we ended up having pretty miserable weather, but we got a couple of nice days, and we ended up harvesting 2 bulls and relaxed, had a big campfire on the beach, ate caribou backstrap, did a kind of side hike for a day or two because we had a little bit of extra time, and then we just got pummeled with rain. The river came up 4 feet overnight, and we had a mule, an Explorer 42, and then we had an Oryx, which is really a canoe style boat. It's similar size to the Forager, but it's built for 2 people to sit and paddle like a canoe. So it's not maybe built to hold as much weight from a hunting perspective, but we had 2 hunters and then 2 of us along to kind of document the trip for Alpacka, and we were there with Maven Optics and some other companies. And so 2 of us ended up taking the Oryx and kind of documenting the other 2. They had a mule and an Explorer 42. And when we packed out those caribou, they each packed out their own. But the guy with the Explorer 42, he had the caribou all up in the front of it, and he stretched out his legs, and he was like, the guy in the mule had his legs over the meat in the front of the boat, and he was fine and comfortable. But definitely the guy with the Explorer 42 had more space for that kind of animal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's all, it seems like that would be because you're at 8 pounds, but you just got that little extra more room where
Yep.
if you're going to the forager, you're committing. That's 14 pounds.
Yep.
You're jumping up there. So I am leaning toward the Explorer 42 as your kind of for hunting for a single guy, for if you want a boat that can kind of do it all, so to speak, in terms of as a hunting rig for
Yep.
an animal the size of a caribou, elk kind of
Yep.
thing, but you're going to backpack in quite a ways.
Yep.
That Explorer 42 looks pretty attractive for that. But you're going to something bigger,
Yep.
water buffalo. You're going to need a forager.
Moose,
Moose.
bison,
Yeah.
yeah, all that stuff. You're going to want forager, or if you want 9 blacktails, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
And I think the foragers where its niche is a situation where you're going to maybe fly in, and if you're thinking Alaska or the Yukon, you may not be hiking in, or you may be hiking in from a road destination or a flying destination where you're going to hike under 5 to 10 miles. But once you've made it to the river, you're not getting off that river. So you're like, okay, I can deal with this 14 pounds because I'm going to hike into this river that other people aren't accessing because there's no access point on the river other than by foot. And once I'm there, yeah, I can suffer with 14 pounds of extra weight in my pack to get that 10 miles. But once I'm there, we're going to have a week-long float hunt. Nobody's going to be around.
Yeah.
And, we can have all that extra stuff.
That's kind of the logistically, that's how you want to do it.
Yeah.
But so do you recommend generally, unless it's real whitewater, not doing self-bailing, or do you prefer self-bailing?
It depends on the situation. The self-bailing more adds weight than anything. It's really nice for hunting. It's really nice for fishing because you can be in and out of the boat and mud and grime and all that stuff. It's also nice when you're carrying meat. That's a kind of a big thing that you have to factor in when you're pack raft hunting is how, if you're going to spend days on the river, how are you going to carry that meat so that it doesn't get super soaked and it doesn't spoil? And what I do is I use my normal game bags just like I would for any other kind of hunt, but I carry an ultralight, super big dry bag.
Yeah.
And when I get on the river for the day, I put all the meat that I can in that dry bag. That's what I put in the front of the boat. And it's not as good as having fully aired out meat, but it's better than getting it soaked with water the whole time. And as soon as I'm done floating for the day, pull it out of the dry bag, hang it or put it on, whatever it is, my willow platform, so it can continue to breathe and air. And that's how I transport meat out of the backcountry in a boat. In your situation where you're just going across the river, I wouldn't bother with that.
Yeah, we just left it inside the packs even.
But where the self bailer is really nice, if you've got up to about a caribou, you've got one big bag of meat that you can pull out of the boat and put back in. If you go elk size, bigger than that, suddenly you've got a lot in there. And if you fill that boat with water and need to bail it, every single time you do that, you can pull everything out, dump the boat out, put everything back in, and continue on. That's where that forager with a self-bailing floor or another boat with a self-bailer, doesn't matter how much water comes over the sides, it's going to drain out the bottom.
Yeah, it does seem a little more bomb-proof. How much weight does it add?
Well, so the forager is just an overall bigger boat, but like the mule you can get in a self-bailing option, and the mule self-bailer adds a little more than a pound to the boat.
Okay.
And we don't do the X42 as a self-bailer, but we do have on our list of projects a boat that's Explorer 42 sized, but self-bailing.
Okay.
Specifically for the solo hunter kind of thing. That'll end up being an extra pound. So we're talking right in the upper 9-pound range. So more than the mule for sure, but reasonable to backpack with.
Okay. On alpaccaraft.com, which by the way is spelled not like an alpaca, but like alpac, like a backpack.
Yeah, we're notoriously bad for puns.
So just so people know, you probably just Google it and you'll find it. But on your page, which by the way, the photography and all the shots make you will just want to go out and get a boat and have an adventure. Very, very cool stuff. But you have behind the boats is a menu option on the page and videos. And I've been enjoying all those videos, and people can go there and just kind of see some adventures that you guys have some films of.
Yeah, and that's just a small smattering of what's out there for trips people have done. There's some cool stuff.
It's pretty cool. I know that a lot of our audience is really interested in the boats, especially, just seeing them in use and seeing like their gears are turning. Okay, where could I get and really take advantage of this boat and really do something, have an adventure that I couldn't otherwise have.
Yeah.
And, but the price is expensive for, you're kind of your average Joe guy. It's like, whoa, this is an $800 boat or a $1,200 boat.
At the start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people spend between $1,200 and $1,500 on a boat.
Yeah. One thing though is it does appear that it's going to last forever.
Yeah, and we have a limited lifetime warranty, but let me explain the philosophy of that a little bit. One of the things that we think is really important is having gear that lasts, and we approach that in two ways. One, we want it to hold up our goal is a 15 to 20 year lifespan out of our boats. And we think that's a pretty reasonable goal.
Yeah. So
we make all the boats in Southwest Colorado. We love doing it here. It gives us a lot of control over the product and the quality. And I think it's really satisfying to be able to provide kind of rural, good paying manufacturing jobs down in this part of the world. So we like manufacture, but it is more expensive. So, and we have our competition is by and large made overseas, and it's a little bit better price point and stuff like that. And so, we keep our margins lower to make our prices a little bit more competitive. And two, we want to, and this one's been a little more challenging, we want to make sure that there are opportunities for people to either improve their own boat or to upgrade fairly easily. So kind of like once you're in the family, you can stay there pretty well. And so we have a whole department that offers repair services, warranty services, and retrofit services. So a lot of times when we come out with some new feature, you want that added to your boat, you don't need to buy a brand new boat. You can send your boat back, we'll upgrade it for you. We try to keep those prices reasonable. And then same thing with repairs. If you can't do the repairs at home, we do repairs at pretty much below cost just to kind of keep people in the boat. And then our warranty, it's lifetime, doesn't cover wear and tear. That's where we do the really affordable repairs. But like if I mentioned your seam tape peels, your boat was made in 2007, we're going to fix it for free or we're going to give you a new boat. So, cool. And because of that, and that reputation we've built, 10-year-old or 8-year-old boats are still selling on the secondary market for 50, 60% of their retail value. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
People are able to upgrade pretty well, but it is a commitment, and I definitely understand that. And that's one area where I do appreciate there are more options in the market now for people to get started packrafting. We kind of view ourselves and try to hold ourselves as standards being the aspirational product for somebody that's hear about it and then they see it. And then like the wheels start turning the head of like, oh, I could go here, I could go there. And it's kind of like, we're the boat you're going to eventually own if you get into the sport.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet, man. I want to thank you for coming on the show. We're at the top of the hour. Before we go, I do want to know, what were your parents thinking when they named you Thor?
Oh, this is a great story to end, and I think it's not going to end in a way. You'll never guess. But so my dad grew up in. So you live in North Salt Lake. My dad grew up in Salt Lake City, large family, and he, of all things, went to University of Utah for his undergraduate school. His dad wanted him to be a doctor. And he got excited about languages. So he studied Latin and classical Greek in college. And then he went from there and he went on to Johns Hopkins to study, linguistics, specifically Middle Eastern linguistics. So this is like 1960s, and he's in Egypt, like studying hieroglyphics and all this kind of crazy stuff. And it's like, what? And now,
You have
like,
quite the eclectic parents.
Yeah, now it wouldn't be surprising for somebody to study Middle Eastern languages, but in 1960, that was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But so naturally, because of that, he couldn't find a job with that degree. So he ended up in National Park Service as a climbing ranger, and that life takes him to Alaska. And I got the benefit of growing up in Alaska and not in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah.
Apologies to anybody that lives in Baltimore. So when he was in graduate school, one of the well-known supposed translators of Syrian texts and poetry at the time was a Finnish guy named Thorkild Jakobsen. So when my parents were trying to figure out in 1978 what to name this new little kid, this name pops up. Oh, this guy is named Thorkild, and that's my full name, Thorkild. And so that's how I got it. Nothing to do with comic books, nothing to do with God of Thunder. How about a Syrian translator?
That's great. What's funny is, you had to have your whole life.
Yeah.
That name is so unique,
Yeah.
That,
and it's, I've loved the name. It's been awesome. There are two big challenges. Number one is because it's memorable. I've spent my whole life flubbing other people's names because I hear them once and then they remembered my name.
Right.
They're like, yeah, I don't know much about you, but I know your name's Thor.
Yeah, I'll never forget that.
I don't know your name, so I've gotten really good at just kind of pretending like I know somebody, but I don't remember their name. And that's probably a bad habit to get into. And then the second is my wife's actually due with a baby boy in February. And so that's our first. And we're like trying to figure out names now. And I'm like, we can't, I got big shoes to fill here.
Yeah, you can't tone it down now.
No, because he's going to be like, how'd I end up with,
Bob?
As my dad? Yeah, exactly. You got Thor. You named me Bob. What?
Oh, I love it. I love it. So your mom's name is Sherry?
Sherry. Yeah.
Sherry. And she's still working with you, designing boats and cranking along.
Yep. She's what I call on like the fun retirement plan. She works 5 days a week, but she gets to do pretty much whatever she wants. Maybe once every few months we'll have some crisis where we're behind on something. I'll be like, Mom, I need you to like come to the manufacturing facility and make 20 spray skirts or something like that. But otherwise, she just, every day I go out there and she's like, look at what I'm doing. And I have to decide whether to be like excited because it's really cool, or like, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do it.
That's cool. It's really neat to have someone on there that's that creative and innovative.
Yeah, that's what she loves to do. Yeah.
Well, Thor, thanks for joining me on the podcast, man. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. It was fun.
The boats are incredible. I can't wait. Brian and we're thinking we got some boating we want to do in New Zealand because we did it last year. And they have a lot of water there. And there are some places we figure we could get to and really leverage that. We've got some more wilderness, like high adventure kind of stuff we want to do in the States. And this year we actually want to not just ferry across, but we want to actually float. So it's going to be a fun year. I think we're ahead of the game mostly. There's not a lot of guys that have themselves a raft or a map in their head or places to go. So until it catches on a little more, we should have a lot of these places to ourselves. And even when it does, there's a difference between people who talk about it and people who actually do it. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.